Hello, this is the second video on getting Ashes of Creation Launcher installed and working on Linux, and I'll get straight to it. After my first video we managed to get the the launcher working on Linux, and that was installed okay. So a quick breakdown of that very briefly. You install Bottles either via Flatpak or whatever application manager you've got. Once you've installed Bottles, you create a template and then you install the launcher. The launcher is installed from here, then it will download and install. It will download and install the game. A couple of settings that you need to be aware of are your dependencies. You need to make sure you've got these dependencies installed. The most important ones are WebView 2 and Visual C redistributable for 2022. Those need to be installed, and then you need to configure the configuration of the bottle. MS Edge WebView 2.exe needs to be in Windows 7 mode, so change it from Windows 10 to Windows 7. And the libraries here, I've put MS Core here as a library, but I don't think you need that, but you need the URLmon here, so add URLmon as a library. Now we've got those, your Intrepid Studios launcher should work okay without any without any complaints. So when we load up the launcher, we get these windows that appear. They go all white. If they go black or they stay white with no information, there's a problem with your MS WebView version, or you've got an issue with your drivers, so you just need to double check that information. So now we know that the alpha IOC launcher does work here, but the problem is at the moment when we click on launch game, it just stays like this for a second, and then eventually it will return to launch game, so it doesn't actually load the game, whereas on Windows it loads the game. So why is this? Right, okay, so I've got this window here, and you notice I've been running this command netstat -ulpn grep wineserve. So that's running the netstat, so that's showing out the connections I've got on my machine at the moment. ULPN shows UDP data, looks for the program, shows me numeric values, etc. And what I want to do is I want to filter by anything that's using the wine server. So wine server is invoked when this starts here, when the launcher starts, because that's coming from Bottles, which uses wine server on its back end. So when you load this, you will get a UDP connection on your computer, and every time you load it up, it'll generate a new connection number. So if I run this, I know that my connection number is 35472 for this instance of the launcher. If I close the launcher down eventually and I load it back up again and I rerun this, I will get a different number. Oh, but I need to log in first, don't forget that. Okay, so now it's logged in, and you'll notice that the numbers changed, 35193. So why is this important, you ask? Well, the launcher is a bootstrapper to run the easy anti-cheat application, which is AOC client.exe, which you'll see I've got over here in Steam. AOC client.exe is the easy anti-cheat front end or bootstrapper application, which then loads up the game application. So you got three elements here. You got the launcher, which processes the login, AOC client.exe, which processes the anti-cheat stuff, and then you've actually got the game exe as well, which is invoked by AOC client.exe, providing login easy anti-cheat has worked successfully. So to get that sorted, assuming that the launcher is okay and the game is installed okay, then we move on to AOC client.exe. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of things here which are interesting. If I try and run AOC client.exe from Bottles here, remember we installed Ashes of Creation game client from Bottles, and that installed okay. But if I try and run the AOC client here, it tells me that DirectX 12 is required, which is interesting because all the settings in here should make sure that DirectX 12 is emulated, if you like, from within the wine service. However, it is not. So it looks like the Vulkan and Proton things are not working 100%. in bottles. Nevertheless, when we run the game client in here, we can use the settings on aocClient.exe. So if you haven't already, go to games, add a non-Steam game to your library and browse the location. Once you've added that, it'll appear here. Just a slight note, if you're using Flatpak to install Steam or Flatpak to install bottles, then it might be worth looking at the Flatpak documentation to give access to the correct area for the application, or just go into FlatSeal and give the permissions there. However, in Steam, you can't use FlatSeal. You've got to grant it from the command line, but there's plenty of documentation online. Here, it tells you how to override certain areas to add it to Steam. So there's a section here for Steam at the bottom. So that's important. And I also want to give a shout out to the guys in the forums who have made this possible as well. So I've been kind of struggling for time recently, so I haven't had any availability to look at this, but on here there has been plenty of inputs. In particular, Icedown has mentioned that basically the launcher hops onto the UDP connection, and then you can load up the launcher on this particular port using this command here. So thanks to those guys just mentioning that information. So we'll just minimize that. So what do we do? So after AOC client has installed, there's a couple of things we need to do. We set the compatibility to Proton Experimental, and we set the shortcut with these options here. Now remember, we ran this command here. What we want to do, we want to pass the number to the option launcher tether port when we run it. Now basically what we want to do, we want to get this line here, and we want to strip all the information out of this line here apart from this number. We just want that number. So this command actually does that. So we get the command that is being executed, which is %command %, and we pass this variable to it, which is launcher tether port. Now launcher tether port, you just put the port number after it. However, because as we've seen here that the port changes every time you run the application, going in, running a netstat to get the port number to go into AOC client and modify the port number it connects to on its launcher tether port isn't ideal, especially if the game crashes and you've got to load it back up again. So what this does, it automatically gets the port number from the netstat and then populates it in this command line. So basically I'm running the same command here that I ran on the shell, and it gave me the port number that I needed. What this bit does, it splits down the information, so it takes all the information out we don't want, and we just want the number, so it just leaves the number on there. And then we set a no splash, so we limit the splash screen that pops up, and we run that when the launcher is run. So if we run this on its own, this is what we get. Now remember, here we haven't authenticated using the launcher. We've just run AOC client.exe, and we'll get the same if we run this on Windows as well. So the launcher authenticates us and then passes us through to the easy anti-cheat, and then that then fires up the game executable. But we get all kinds of errors here. This case I've got an error code 406, and you can hear the game there. So we cancel this. Okay, so that didn't work. And why didn't it work? Because what we need to do is we need to be authenticated to Intrepid Studios launcher before that works. So we log in, and the other reason why that doesn't work is because the UDP port isn't there, because we haven't logged into the game. So once we log into the game, we get the UDP port. Again, we try and launch game, it's not going to work, but we know the wine server has initiated the port here. It's changed its port number, so hopefully the exe now will automatically pick up that port number and pass it to the launch options, and then we can run it. So remember that error message we got before? Now the error messages could be UDP port can't be contacted, there's an issue with the network, or authentication has failed. In this case, all those error messages go away. And because this is on a Tuesday, the alpha servers are not up on a Tuesday, so we just get the error can't connect to, I'll turn the sound down on this actually, it can't connect to the realms code 23, and that is a valid error message because the services are down. So we know the game works on Linux. We've got this hack down here somewhere which allows you to go to the character screen. If you could just bear with me a second, there we go. We found it. So there's a button there somewhere. So it takes you to the character creation screen. We click on confirm here, and then we can create a character from here. Obviously it won't be saved because we're not connected to a realm, but this is the Linux. So the Linux side of the character creation, we go to archetype, we choose something, I don't know, we click on appearance, and we go zoom in like we do on Windows, and there we go. We can see that this works. Let's have a look at the presets here. That looks okay. We got skin tone balance, that seems to work okay. The hair type, yeah, it's not as clear cut as Windows, but you know, it'll do, it's fine. No hair, that's probably going to be me in a few years time. So we can change the hair length as well, so that grows okay. And hair base color, we can change that to purple, pink, whatever, so that works okay. We can add a beard, so all this works. Some things are missing, so the face shape is missing on Linux, but that's to be expected because it's an alpha, not everything is going to work. But looking at this, most things are there. Eyebrows, 0. But I think there's some features of the character creation in general that are missing because it's an alpha, so that's okay. And we've got the sculpt option. Let's see if the sculpt option works here. I can, oh yeah, it does, yeah. So I can do that. I can do the cheek there. Yeah, that's good. Let's have a look at the forehead. Oh yeah, okay. You can do the eyebrows. I can do the nose. We just done the nose. I can do the lips. Yeah, so all that works. Okay, so I expect that this should work on Linux when the game loads up. So we're just going to quit out of that, and I'm going to exit. So there you go. So once again, thanks to the guys on the forum who's sorted this out. I'd have probably got to that point anyway, but just been busy with things. Real life always takes its toll, especially when you need to focus on Linux, but I'm glad this is sorted now, so we can now get into the game. Any questions about this, please let me know, but enjoy the game and keep using Linux if you can. Thanks, speak to you soon.